What are you really passionate about discussing today?
I would say making the whole concept of food allergies or changing their diet really fun and easy. And so that's what I do every day in my practice. So that's what I'm really passionate about is just making kind of that transition to eating some new and different foods, second nature. It's all about like just starting. And so not like not everyone has food allergies or intolerance, but when they go even to maybe eating gluten free, there's always something that can be a little bit overwhelming, like what to shop for, how to navigate the grocery store, how to make meals. And so when I created that food allergy formula, yeah, it's for people who, have food allergies, but actually it could be anyone making any different dietary change just to make it as simple as possible.
Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 185. Hello, True Health Seekers, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. I have a fantastic naturopathic physician guest today, talking about some things that, we all want to learn, which is how to change our diet when we do want to change our diet in a way that makes it easier for us. We have a great conversation ahead for you to listen to. But first, what I wanted to say is thank you. First of all, thank you for being a listener. I love doing this podcast because I constantly hear from listeners that it's making a difference in their lives. I love your emails. If you have a testimonial that my podcast is making a difference to you, please share it. I'd love to hear it. You can email me, ashley@learntruehealth.com. I'd love to hear from you. You could also join our Facebook group. Just go into Facebook and search Learn True Health and you'll find our group there. Please join it. I love conversing with all the wonderful listeners, learning so much from you guys, and connecting. Because if you are a regular listener, I want to connect with you. I want to know your opinion. I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. Your feedback helps shape the guests I go after and the information I am here to bring you. Also, I'm so touched and moved by the wonderful reviews that you guys are giving on iTunes. When you give a 5-star rating and a written review and you subscribe and download on iTunes, those are all the metrics needed to keep my podcast at number one. It's been number one in the iTunes section of new and noteworthy podcasts for both the health section and science and medicine, and number two in education. That's a really big deal to me because what it means is it means that my podcast is making a difference in the lives of thousands and thousands of people. That's why I do what I do. If you haven't left a review already and you do have iTunes, please, I would love to see a review from you. It makes such a difference, not only to me and motivation to keep going and keep doing this podcast, but also by you subscribing, downloading from iTunes, and leaving a 5-star rating and a written review. You continue to have iTunes promote the podcast so more and more people can learn and grow and get their health back. So continue sharing the podcast, continue learning, continue listening, and please leave a rating and review. It means so much to me and it helps to further our cause. Excellent. Well, enjoy today's interview and have yourself a fantastic day. It is always such a pleasure when we get to have someone who is a holistic doctor on the show. Just one of my biggest passions in life is sharing about why I love naturopathic medicine, why I love holistic medicine, and helping people to discover it. Because it helped me get my life back. It helped me, I was told I was infertile my entire life, and now I have a son because of natural medicine. I no longer have diabetes. I no longer have high blood pressure. I no longer have chronic infections and adrenal fatigue and on and on and on. All these symptoms that I was living with because of naturopathic and natural medicine. I have been able to resolve those issues and continue to gain more and more health. And so I love bringing wonderful experts on the show who can teach you and give you the step-by-step tools to making those baby steps that one day you wake up and realize you no longer have migraines, or you no longer have chronic infections, or you're no longer tired every morning, that you can actually jump out of bed full of energy. And our guest today is one of those doctors who is going to teach you what you can do to begin to feel better and build a foundation of strong health. Dr. Ellie Heintze, I'm so happy to have you here on the show today.
Thank you, Ashley, so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I am a listener of your show, and I just love your mission, so it's really great to be here.
It just tickles me pink when I find out that doctors listen to my show. I'd love for you to start our interview by sharing your story. What led you to become the healer you are today?
Yeah, so I call it my previous life, I was a chemist, and I was actually in graduate school getting my master's degree in chemistry, and this is probably 12 years ago now. And at that time, food allergies, gluten-free living wasn't as mainstream as it was now. And at that time, I was really suffering from digestive health issues, and it was been going on for a little too long. And um, I kind of took that initiative. I went to get help. I went to a gastroenterologist, thinking that that I have digestive issues. I should go to a gastroenterologist, and it was like one of the worst experiences I've had. Like, they looked at me and you're too young to have anything going on with you. They did very basic tests, like just did, basic blood work. It's like, well, everything's normal, but I was suffering. I had intense pain. I was constantly bloated, and I kind of became, a recluse. I couldn't really go out. I would just go to the chemistry lab and back home because I was in so much pain. And I was actually in Flagstaff, Arizona at that time, and there was this clinic that I would walk by. It was a natural health clinic, and it was the only one in town. And I didn't really know what this guy did, but I was like, you know what? I just need help. And I made an appointment with him, and he was a naturopathic doctor and a licensed acupuncturist. And that first visit, I say changed my life, because it really did. Not only did it change my life, introducing me to natural medicine and really what a natural doctor can do for you, but also what acupuncture could do. And it also kind of paved the way for my future, because after that first visit, I knew like we had a plan. He sat down with me for more than an hour and gave me hope and steps that we were going to take to figure out what was going on, and said, maybe you're allergic to something that you're eating. And I was like, what? You can be allergic to something that you're eating? And but what he did in that first visit, he did acupuncture. And he did that because I was in pain, and he wanted to get me out of pain as soon as possible. And I felt relief after that first treatment. And I went home and I was like, I want to do what he's doing. This is what medicine is supposed to be like. And he was a graduate of Bastyr University, so I started doing intense research about what this school was and what this was all about. And I finished up my master's degree, which happened to be that same year, and I applied to Bastyr, and I moved up to Seattle. And that experience just really changed my life, knowing the benefits of natural medicine and what it can do, but also the combination of acupuncture with natural medicine was key. And I knew that going into Bastyr that I wanted to do both programs because they work so well together.
I love your story because it paints this perfect picture, the dichotomy between allopathic medicine and naturopathic medicine. We see here a patient who clearly is suffering, clearly has symptoms. And I just envisioned, as you were sharing your story, that the MD never looked up from his notes, never looked up from the computer or from the lab work, and just looked at his notes, said, well, she's, young, everything's normal in the lab. There should be nothing wrong with her. There's nothing wrong with you. Go home.
Yep.
and never once connecting, looking you in the eye, spending time, asking you questions, trusting that the patient would share information that was relevant. And I feel that there's this huge lack of trust in the allopathic, the MD world, that they don't trust what the patient says, that information doesn't matter. It's secondary to what would be said on a piece of paper on the lab work. And that's how we feel. We often feel very disconnected and cold in terms of the relationship between us and an MD, or they'll walk in and talk to us a little bit, look at the paperwork, and then hand us a prescription. And there's no guidance, education, exploration, or it's very limited. And if you do get that level of wonderful care from an MD, that is not the norm, what we're seeing more and more, which is unfortunate. And then you take this picture and you look over here to this time when you got to spend in the first appointment. This doctor sits down with you, speaks with you, listens to you, asks questions about different areas of your life, fully engages with you, and then says, let's create a plan. Let's look at how we can examine your life and seek to find the root cause. And it's so beautiful. This is why I'm such a huge fan of holistic medicine, and obviously the medicine that you now practice. So now it's full circle and you get to help so many people. Are you noticing that people come to you kind of like the same situation, where they're coming to you after having sort of been rejected by the MDs and still not having any success, and then they come to you and you get to hold their hand and say, together we're going to find the answer?
Yes, all the time. That's probably the most common story that I get. With acupuncture, it definitely brings a lot of people in who have chronic pain, and they come to acupuncture as a last resort. I wish they would come as the first option, but yeah, I hear that all the time. And, I just kind of sit there. I'm like, I'm so glad that you're here, and just kind of start the conversation off with that, because I'm really glad they're here, because they're going to start making amazing progress in their health.
Wonderful. Now, you have, because of your own experience, you've become quite passionate about helping us to help us go through the process of making the changes we want to make. So, for example, if someone wants to go gluten-free, it's very overwhelming. I know I did it 6 years ago with my husband, and even back then there weren't a lot of gluten-free options. And now what we're learning is you shouldn't just go crazy and eat all the things that say gluten-free on it, just because it says gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Corn chips are gluten-free. It doesn't mean they're going to be healthy for you necessarily. And so the process of, if we wanted to go dairy-free or gluten-free, or remove some foods that we're reacting to, or even if someone wanted to try to become raw vegan or go paleo, or like making a huge shift in their diet, there's many steps. It's quite complicated, can be very overwhelming. And you've developed a formula to help people to do the steps in a way that is less overwhelming and much more reasonable.
Yeah, I see a lot of people with digestive health issues like IBS, or they have celiac disease, or they're just really curious about this whole gluten-free thing, or they've tried going gluten-free and they notice that their joint pain gets better or their skin clears up. And you're definitely right. I call it the gluten-free switch, where when people say they want to go gluten-free, they make that switch to just gluten-free bread and gluten-free pasta. But I kind of take it one step further. Ideally, I would like if people kind of skip the gluten-free switch phase and go right into just eating a whole foods, low carbohydrate diet, because then they're really just getting all the nutrients that they need, and less processed foods, because gluten-free food, is still processed. And so, but I always meet people where they're at, because it's a change. Making any kind of change in your lifestyle with your diet, it can be really overwhelming. And so if someone is totally new to like going to a natural foods market, like that's, they just don't know how to navigate around, starting off doing that gluten-free switch is probably the perfect point, because you're starting to learn new skills. And one of the skills that I like to teach is label reading. And you can learn a lot just by looking at the label of food. And so I use it as a good starting point for people, just to start there and start to realize what's actually in their food. And once they get comfortable with, making that switch of, to the gluten-free breads and pastas, then we kind of take it a step further of, how can you change this meal to incorporate more vegetables, more nutrients, more good fats, and maybe taking away some of the bread or the pasta and substituting it with like quinoa or brown rice. But I always try to kind of meet them where they're at and then go from there.
Now, eating a whole foods diet doesn't mean we're eating at Whole Foods,
Yeah.
which used to be my diet, just eating at the hot bar of Whole Foods.
Yep.
Um, so some people might have concerns about eating a whole foods diet. Like, does that mean I can't eat meat? Does that mean I can't eat sweets? Does that once in a while? Does that mean I'm going to be bored with my food, or I'm going to be hungry all the time? Some people have ideas that rice is what fills them up, or pasta or bread is what fills them up. And if they
Mhm.
just ate lots of vegetables, it wouldn't satiate them. How would you recommend people integrate a whole foods diet while maintaining that sense of satisfaction in terms of like hunger, satiation, and also a balanced energy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And what I usually say is increase your protein. And so when I kind of coach my patients on what they should be eating for all their meals is to have small, frequent meals throughout the day, but always have some protein in it. And when you have more protein and incorporate some good fats like avocado or nuts and seeds, olive oil, coconut oil, you actually will feel fuller longer, and you won't get those spikes in energy. Your blood sugar won't crash all the time. And sometimes we can get that when we say we have like a rice dish. We can feel full really fast, but we get hungry more quickly. And so I actually find people feel better when they're eating more frequently and having more protein. Um, and that can be a change too. Not some people just either skip breakfast or they just have like oatmeal. Um, and that's great. You know, oatmeal is gluten free, but there's not that much protein in it, and it really spikes your blood sugar. So I kind of say, how about, taking a little bit extra time to maybe make like a scrambled egg or do like a protein shake in the morning, just to get protein in your system. And that can really help with your energy. And so by having protein, can really help.
I think that if we don't have enough time to scramble an egg, then we need to reevaluate our life. Because I've made breakfast such a priority in my household that we all together sit down as a family, and I just make sure that we wake up with enough time to all sit down for breakfast, because I used to eat the largest meal of the day at night and skip breakfast, kind of eat haphazardly at lunch and maybe snack time. Because of my blood sugar was not well managed, and then have this giant meal after the sun is set, and that did not increase my energy and just left me feeling drained, and gaining weight. I've now tipped it over, because I hear enough people say it, I got to try it, but I tipped it over so my biggest meal of the day is breakfast, and I
Hmm.
feel amazing, and I make sure I get enough healthy fat, like you said. In fact, when I went more whole foods, more vegetables, you could never have enough vegetables, and increasing the healthy fats, I was someone who would always naturally gravitate towards too much protein. Like, if you left me alone, I might only eat protein. Like, I'm kind of like that weird cave woman Atkins kind of person that just left to my own devices, I'm just going to eat a giant steak or something. And and so what I noticed is that more vegetables, more healthy fats, like you said, throughout the day, I cannot believe how much energy I have. I wake up and, like my friend used to say, whip my weight in Wildcats. I feel so good, and it was simply from going whole foods diet and focusing on moderate for me. Moderate protein is probably having to increase protein for other people, but healthy fats, I really had to focus on making sure I was getting enough healthy fats at each meal, and tons of vegetables. And
Hmm.
that made such a difference for me. And you're right, if I don't get protein in the morning, I feel like a completely different person. And it's really amazing how many people will kind of be grumpy and they don't realize that it's their unbalanced or unregulated blood sugar that is causing their mood swings, when they tend to blame. When you get into low or high or swinging blood sugar, we tend to want to blame other people. Like, that person cut me off, that person irritated me, they stole my parking spot, whatever it is. And when we're like even keel and happy level energy, it doesn't matter. Oh, that person's in a rush. Okay, there'll be another parking spot, whatever. And it's just so funny how when we set ourselves up for success in the morning with our breakfast, we can really be setting ourselves up emotionally and mentally for the rest of the day as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, let's share with us what we can do. So for those who are listening, probably have thought of changing their diet in some way, if not going completely whole foods diet, definitely have thought of maybe cutting out dairy and seeing how they do on no dairy or no, dairy products, or maybe going gluten-free, or maybe there's something they'd like to cut out of their diet and replace with something healthy. Obviously, we're not just going to leave you not eating. Can you walk us through some steps? Now, I know your treatment plan is very individualized. Obviously, like you say, you meet people where they are starting from. But in a general sense, what could you teach us that would make it easier for us to make that transition?
Yeah, so I talk about this quite frequently, actually, so much that I was saying the same thing over and over again, patient after patient, that I condensed it all into this course that I give to my patients, because feel like I was just repeating everything over and over. And the first part, like I would say, there's 3 steps. First one is to identify if it's an allergy, what that is, so you know what you should be avoiding, or if you just want to go gluten-free or dairy-free, like you said, identify what it is that you want to change. That would be step 1. And with that, doing some research behind what that is. So when you're, to say, gluten-free, for example, really understanding, what that means. A lot of us are like, yeah, I'm gluten-free, but really don't really know what gluten is. And I feel like if you know more about it, you can feel a little bit more empowered to know why you're doing what you're doing, why you're going gluten-free, and why that's important. So I like to always educate my patients on the why behind it. So with like gluten, just for example, why someone could go gluten-free was because we can't really digest that gluten protein, and it's shown to be really pro-inflammatory. So someone could be, my why behind going gluten-free is I want to decrease my inflammation and have better digestion. And so when they know the why behind what they're doing, they're more likely to stick with it and be compliant for the process as we go forward. So that's usually the first part, is to identify that change that you want to make. And then second is planning. Because like we said, when you start something new, it can be really overwhelming, even if it's, quote unquote, just going gluten-free. That's really overwhelming to, I would say, the majority of Americans, because we're so used to eating a certain way. And you really do have to make this mindset shift when you go to reach for something. Is this gluten-free, or can I eat this, or what can I eat? So when I say planning, it really just goes down back to the basics of knowing how to shop at the grocery store. And in my course, the food allergy formula, that's a whole module, a whole video series. I was very fortunate enough to be able to film that at a local market, where I literally walk you through the aisles and show you how to find things. Because it can be really overwhelming just going to the grocery store, not knowing what sections you can go to, what foods you can eat. But a part of that is also learning how to read the food label. And so once you get familiar with that, it can really make your planning of your meals a lot easier. And soon that will become second nature, where you can just turn a product over. Oh, yep, I can have that. That's gluten-free. But along with the planning is making the meals really simple and easy. It doesn't have to be this complicated thing. It can just be really simple, like having meat, having protein, like grilled chicken with a gluten-free grain like brown rice or quinoa, and vegetables. That's a very simple gluten-free meal. Or I'm a big fan of making things in bulk. So like a slow cooker type meal that can make like 4 to 6 meals. And with those, you just put your meat in, put some vegetables in, and a base like coconut milk or stock of some sort, and let it cook. And there you go. You have easy protein-focused meals that will then help you plan out the week. So making things in bulk is also another helpful thing. So you don't have to think about what you're going to eat. It's already there. So that'd be step number 2 is just kind of planning out your meals and making them as simple as possible to start with. You don't have to make these complicated recipes. And then the third step is to make it routine. And kind of like the Boy Scout motto is always be prepared. It's very similar with any other change you're trying to make. Always be prepared. Because I would hear my patients say, like, I don't want to be out and just not have anything to eat. And when we're in that space where we kind of have freak out mode of there's nothing, I don't have any food, you tend to fall back on your old habits. And so always be prepared. Like always have easy to grab snacks, or know, like wherever you're going, where is there a place that I can stop and eat? I like Chipotle, just for a quote unquote fast food place. Chipotle is very food allergy friendly. All their things, except for the flour tortillas, are gluten free. And so I'm like, go to a Chipotle, have a meal there. But have this routine that you have, and that can also kind of piggyback on the meal planning by always setting a day, like say Sunday is your meal planning day, where you maybe make a slow cooker meal and maybe make another meal, put them in containers, puts them in the freezer, puts them in the fridge, and you just have meals that are ready to go, majority of the week. And you do that every week and get used to it. Sunday is my day to make food. That it's in your schedule. And just make things routine and be prepared. And so soon it will become second nature, and you won't even have to think about it. And soon you'll say, wow, it was so easy to go gluten-free. And now you know. And so when we make any type of change, it can be a little difficult at first, but once you learn the steps, you get the routine down, you have a plan, it can become really easy.
What bulk meals did you make this week?
So I do a lot of, curry type meals, and so I just get a big skillet out and I cook up what I do. I had some ground lamb and I just brown that, and then I put some coconut milk in there, and then we have like some sauteed veggies and I put in there. And it makes like 4 meals. So I just always do something with coconut milk. I just love coconut milk. So I'm one of those people that have the 3 allergies. So I'm allergic to eggs, dairy, and gluten. And so a lot of my meals don't have any of those in there. And so I can really, and people are like, oh my gosh, what do you eat? And I usually say, there's so much that I can eat. And that's true, because it's just a mindset shift. And usually with eggs, when people say, oh, wow, what do you do when you can't have eggs? I'm like, well, you just eat other things. Have a non-traditional breakfast where, I usually have like turkey sausage, bacon, over salad, over greens, and just not have eggs. It's totally fine. So it's kind of starting where you're at, no matter what you're trying to avoid or allergies that you have, and just making it work for you. And that's important part is making it easy so you can do it, not really, you don't really care what everyone else is doing as long as it works for you.
Exactly. And what about those people who have families?
Mm-hmm.
How do you coach your patients who they want to make the change, but maybe their family's not ready to, or maybe their family's not allergic to those foods?
Yes, that's a good question, because I also come across that all the time. And as much as I say, try to get the whole family involved, that'd be my number one tip. If possible, just get everyone else on board. And just to give like the gluten-free example, like say I had a patient who cooks all of her meals for her family, and she has kids and a husband, and they're not gluten-free, and she's like, oh, well, it'll be so hard, just for me to eat gluten-free and everyone else eating the other stuff. And I usually say, first start out, if you can, just make your own food, but then slowly try to incorporate the family into eating the same way. So one, you're saving time because you're just making the same meal that everyone else can eat. But also, usually when you switch to eating gluten-free, like we've been talking about, it's more whole foods based, less processed foods. And so really the whole family can benefit from that. But I totally can get there are, kids are not kind of open sometimes to trying some different foods. And so that's always where I say, start where you're at and then kind of work up to that. But making it as simple as possible. So having a maybe separate meal for you to start off, that's okay. But just always the plan is if everyone else could be involved, that would be great. It's also a really good time to educate the family too on why you're doing these changes, and so they understand. Because I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're left out or they're different or by making these changes. And if you tell them this is why I'm doing it, people usually understand and get it.
Awesome. Can you share some stories of success? Obviously, not divulging anyone's name, but
hmm
any patients that pop into your mind that have had a wonderful transformation through working with you?
Yeah. So like I said, when I first started here, I have a lot of people who find me who um, I've suffered for a long time. And so I see actually a lot of people who have like chronic migraines and also digestive issues like IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. And a lot of my success stories are people who have these chronic migraines and they're just on several different migraine medications and they still get migraines, which kind of blows my mind sometimes thinking about how that can be possible. But when they come see me, they are ready to have a change. And there's been a couple people who, with doing food allergy testing on them as well as acupuncture, getting their migraines down and getting them off of their migraine medicine. That's always my favorite story, even if I had one lady who she was in an active migraine at her first visit. It was really uncomfortable. And it was one of those times where I know I have all these list of questions that I need to go through, but I was like, this person, they need acupuncture right now, and kind of went into the treatment and her migraine was gone in that visit. And it was kind of a life-changing moment for her because nothing has worked that fast before.
Wow.
And always those stories makes me feel so good because I know the power of acupuncture, and sometimes it takes a little bit to show people how it can work because it doesn't always have that immediate of effect. But when it does, it's always really powerful and awesome. And so she's been a long-term patient. She just comes back because she likes acupuncture. But that's like one of my favorite stories is when people come in and they have immediate relief with the acupuncture. But also on the other hand, people who have just very similar to my own story. And so when I have people come in who say, I've had digestive issues my whole life and I don't know what's going on. I love when those people come in because there's hope. And I know that, and I can help kind of figure that out. Not everyone has food allergies. I like to test people because it's good data to have. But not everyone that walks in has food allergies. It could be other things going on that's contributing. But I also like to get to the root cause. And so when those people come in saying like, I've had these health issues for so long, and finally figuring out what is going on, those are just truly amazing stories.
Yeah, and they might not have a quote unquote allergy or like an IgG response, for example, to
Mhm.
gluten or to
Yep.
those grains. But if it's GMO or
hmm
has pesticides, whatever, this chemicals sprayed on it, or any chemicals in the processing of it, the manufacture of it, they could be reacting to that as well. And so, or even mold, really
hmm
commonly in grains, nuts, seeds, beans, there is an amount of, or a chance to have the toxins from mold. Cashews it was like 64% of all cashews tested have mold toxin.
mm
The mold isn't actively there, but the toxin left behind is there. And, if someone is sensitive to that, or if, over time, if they're eating food or even coffee's been known to have mold toxin. and even if it's organic, and so we're looking at the more the food's processed, we can think, oh, this is healthy, it's organic beans or organic cashews, but it can still have other things going on. And so, like, taking the time to listen to our body and figure out, maybe we're not having, maybe it's not going to show up in a blood test. Some people go and they go, oh, I went to my doctor and I'm not allergic to gluten. I did one of those tests and I'm not allergic. Well, but you eat it and you feel like crap. So what's going on? So there might be things that come with all the gluten foods. Like there might be highly processed other things, chemicals, sugar, mold toxin, whatever it is. And so getting to the point where listening to our body needs to become more important than whatever a test says. I just can't stand it when people were really, really healthy and then they're like, well, my doctor told me I'm not allergic to gluten, so I can eat it again. And then their like health deteriorates afterwards. And I'm like, no, listen to your
Mhm.
body.
Yeah. Yep, I totally agree.
Now, can you give us some tips for how we can listen to our body? I think we're so busy. How can we begin to hear and understand that language the body's speaking to us, the symptoms the body's speaking to us, so that we can begin to hone in and figure out what foods we should possibly consider eliminating?
Yeah, I would say your starting point should be if you notice that new things are happening. Say maybe you're getting some skin rashes that's never been there before, or your energy is just not where it used to be, or even your sleep is a little bit off. Um, that now is the time to really start kind of investigating and seeing kind of what's going on. And so if you feel like something is just not right or not how it used to be, um, diet can definitely be a part of it. And so with testing for a food allergy, um, what is this saying is your immune response activated when you're eating certain foods? And yeah, with the test, it could say that. But also, you could just be sensitive to a food, and that can develop um, over time. And so, if we are more in tune with our body and maybe some changes that are happening, and then having a starting point of figuring out, is it an allergy? Is it not? Is it sensitivity? Is it something that I'm doing? Is there high stress in my day that's a new thing? A recent job change or a move to a different house? Those are all factors that can kind of interfere with kind of our body and how we respond. So that could definitely be a place to start. Is if you're noticing that things are changing, and to kind of go from there.
Wonderful. You keep mentioning how well acupuncture works. And for those who maybe haven't had an experience of acupuncture working, or maybe have never even been for an acupuncture session, why does acupuncture work?
Um, yeah, that's kind of my slogan. I would say acupuncture works, and it can just work for a whole wide range of conditions. So, just to kind of break it down really simply, acupuncture helps your body's natural ability to heal itself. And so, by doing that, they've actually found in research that acupuncture can activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which what turns on when we're sleeping. So that's why we go to sleep, because we need to repair and rejuvenate from the day. Acupuncture works on that level. And so when people usually get their first treatment, I explain that to them that you may, get sleepy and take a little nap, and that's totally okay because that means that the treatment's working. But a lot of people say, well, I'm laying down, I should just be relaxed anyways. But majority of the time, after I put the points in, people can instantly just kind of zone out and take a nap. And that's kind of how acupuncture works, is on that parasympathetic level, getting things back in balance and helping your body respond and adapt better to any stress, to any diet changes, to decrease pain and inflammation, just to get everything back in tune.
I love it. I've had that experience where I totally pass out on the table after getting the needles in me, and I have like crazy deep dreams, and I wake up feeling like I slept 8 hours and it was 20 minutes. And it was just
Mhm.
very deep, very restful sleep. It's really cool. Whereas if I were just lying on the couch, I'm not going to have that experience just lying on the couch. Just because you lie down doesn't mean you have that experience. So I've definitely had that experience. It's quite amazing. Why does acupuncture help so much with digestive issues?
Yeah, so acupuncture is just amazing in the fact that, like I said, it can help your body's ability to heal itself. And with our digestive system being the core, the root, and like 70% of our immune system is in our gut. But it's also directly related to our mind. And so, what acupuncture can do is help to kind of regulate if there's any stress, like if there's anxiety um, or depression, that can also affect our digestive system because they kind of work together. It can help kind of balance those out. So, a lot of the time I see with my patients, if they have, IBS, for example, there's majority of the time an emotional component with that. Like
Mm.
they have severe anxiety or other spectrum, they're depressed. And so acupuncture can work on both of those at the same time, and that's when people really get better because it's so amazing that it can do that. It's like whole body medicine that it can do that. So like with the points, when I choose the points, a lot of people are like, how come you're just not putting all the needles in my, stomach? And I was like, well, it works on the whole body, and so I have to take that into account. And that's why we put points everywhere on your arms and legs and on the top of your head because it's getting everything back in balance. Because your body is a unit; it's not your digestive system separate than, you know, um, your muscles. It's all together, and so you have to take that into account. And that's why it's so effective.
What is it about acupuncture that decreases or eliminates pain? I mean, we even
Mm-hmm.
think of uh, those who have opted for acupuncture to manage pain for operations. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty amazing what you can do with acupuncture to eliminate or decrease pain. Uh, why does it work so well with pain?
Yeah, a lot of people know that acupuncture can help with pain. If anything, that's kind of where people are like, I know acupuncture can help with pain, not really aware that it can do so much more. But yeah, it works so amazing at pain because not only can it address locally where the pain is, but also systemically. And in Chinese medicine viewpoint, we have this energy called qi, and our qi moves our blood, and it's a blood that nourishes our muscles, our nerves, our tissues. But if the qi is stuck, if it's blocked, it can't move the blood, and then our body is not being nourished. And so when we find where those blockages are and get the energy moving freely, it gets those areas that have pain, which as an acupuncturist, we see that is like crying for help, like help, I need nutrients and I need blood supply. And so we get the energy to that area and the pain goes down and inflammation goes down because you're supplying that area of the body with the support that it needs. And so that's when we see pain decrease.
Cool. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. It's so much better than taking a bunch of drugs that destroy our liver.
Hmm. Yep.
And I was amazed to find out that I thought Advil, out of all the drugs you could take for decreasing pain, I thought Advil was pretty safe. And then I come to find that Advil stops the anti-inflammatory cycle. So the
Mm.
body's trying to regulate its own inflammation, and Advil kind of comes in and disrupts that. So even though Advil might mask the symptom of pain, it's doing you no good in terms of the long-term healing that from and pain being a symptom. If you obviously want to heal the underlying, so you no longer have the pain. So I
Hmm.
thought that was pretty interesting. Now your website, which is startingpointacupuncture.com, you have some list of your services. One of them is nutritional counseling, And what's the difference between nutritional counseling and then you have also the Ignite Health program? I'm curious, what's the difference between nutritional counseling and your other healing program?
Yeah, so I see people locally, like if you're in Washington, I can see you in person in my office, but I also see people throughout um, the country. And so for nutrition counseling, um, in a normal visit, we may have time to like do acupuncture, but I always like to work on diet and those lifestyle changes that we're trying to accomplish. And you need a little bit more time because meal planning can be a little bit more tricky than, okay, this is what I'm gonna eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Um, Sometimes it takes a lot more planning. And like I said, kind of going back to the basics, like how to make that grocery list and how to read the food labels and what to exactly shop for at the grocery store. And so with that nutrition coaching, that's where that comes into play because I want to make sure that my patients are empowered to go out in the real world and make those changes. And so that's what we do in those visits, making sure that they have all the information that they need, that they can just head right over to the grocery store, get the exact foods to make those meals and to implement that. But with the Ignite Health program, I created that because a lot of the times if you are kind of stuck or you have this chronic, say low energy or joint pain or digestive issues, whatever it is, and you just don't know where to start, um, that I created this program as kind of that starting point. For a program, it's 6 weeks long, and it's a program to help you really start implementing these changes right away. So you meet with me once a week for 6 weeks, and we work on those areas that you want to focus on and just really like laser focused on those and how to make those changes. And with that program, we definitely incorporate meals, like what you should be eating that's specific to you. But I also work a lot on mindset because that's a huge component of making any lifestyle change is mindset and stress reduction techniques that you can have that will work for you. But also movement and getting people moving is a huge part. And so I created the Ignite Health program, just those people who are like ready to get started and to provide that kind of a starting point for them.
Very cool. And I see a picture of a bulk section on that web page, and I'm tickled pink because we go to the same grocery store.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so cool. I'm like, hey, I shop there.
Hmm.
Oh, it's so neat. Yeah, we discovered that we live very close to each other, so it was really
Hmm.
cool. We're probably gonna bump into each other now in the grocery store now that we know that we shop at the same place. Um, Wonderful. Well, you also have a podcast. Can you share a bit about your podcast as well, since all my listeners are eager podcast listeners?
Yeah. So I have multiple hats that I wear, and I also have a podcast called the Daily Cup Podcast, and I have another business that's more business consulting for wellness providers. And on the Daily Cup, we talk about kind of strategies on how to grow a successful wellness practice. And so I have guest experts on there, but I also do a lot of mindset and productivity episodes as well. So it's pretty interesting. I have a lot of really interesting business coaches, social media gurus on the show, and I kind of pick their brain because I love to learn, and so I want to have people who have success in their field on there to really help other wellness providers have tools that they can take back to their practice so they can be successful because I want our medicine to survive. And
Mm.
for us to survive, we need to have sustainable and profitable businesses. And so this is my way of kind of continuing that conversation. And so acupuncture and natural medicine and chiropractic and massage can be mainstream, like more mainstream than just really popular in Washington. But to have naturopaths licensed in all 50 states, that would be amazing. Just get the word out on the power of, what we can do with natural medicine.
And it's actually safer for the population if we were to have
Hmm.
naturopathic medicine licensed in all 50 states, because in the states that it's not licensed in, anyone can do some kind of weird
Hmm.
online thing and have a certification and call themselves a naturopath when they're not. They're
Yep.
not. It's a lie. This is a real medical profession
Hmm.
that you want to make sure you're going to a licensed naturopathic physician and not some person that printed a certificate out on the internet. It's a big
Hmm.
difference.
Yep.
I love that, and I love that your podcast that you do, because that is so true to my heart. Anything that we can do to uplift this profession, and let people know about it, and also stand behind the naturopaths and the chiropractors and the massage therapists and the acupuncturists, and lift them up and help them to have successful practices. One of my friends who's a naturopath who graduated a few years ago from Bastyr, she says that out of her entire graduating class, she's the only successful one, and that broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
She's launched her own clinic. It's a successful clinic, and every other student that she graduated with is not successful at the moment. And what I hear is that most naturopaths within 5 years just kind of drop out and go do something else, or go work as a at a pharmacy or something. There's this local pharmacy chain here where it's like granola in the front and drugs in the back, and so they have naturopaths are the cashiers, and
Hmm.
I almost fell on the floor when I saw the name tag of the guy who's handing me my change after I'm buying my arnica or whatever I was buying, and it says ND after his name, and I just almost fell on the floor and started weeping. I was I felt, I mean, I'm happy that he has a job, he's got to pay his bills, but at the same time, there are sick people around in every state, and they desperately could use the help of a naturopath, and the fact that there's not enough either support, education, business education, whatever it is, to ensure that each naturopath can start a successful practice, or get into another successful practice. We've got to do something about it. I love that you took on this as a mission, because it needs to happen. And what I love seeing is other naturopaths who open their doors and allow their clinic to be a teaching clinic. That's another thing that
Hmm.
is in high demand, is the amount of apprenticeship that could go on. We need to really encourage experienced naturopaths to open their doors and allow naturopathic students to come in and also get more experience as well. I had a pleasure of going to a clinic that was a teaching clinic, and it was a lot of fun, connecting with the
Hmm.
the naturopathic students, and having them be part of my care. So that's just really cool. Have you gotten any feedback from your podcast where what you've been doing is starting to make a difference, and in your listeners, and some practitioners are beginning to be able to finally see results out of what they're learning from your podcast?
Oh yeah, and yeah, I got a lot of feedback initially when I kind of launched it out there. A lot of people came to me and was like, "Thank you so much for having this episode on how to properly set up your social media." And even though I thought, "Oh, this is going to be too basic to talk about," it can be really valuable for somebody who was maybe just starting their practice or has been in a practice for a while and they haven't gotten into the online world yet. And this person was just like, "Thank you so much for this episode and having that guest on to show me what social media accounts I should be focusing on." And just those things like that make it worth it. So when I choose guests to be on the show, I'm kind of selective in who I choose because I want to make sure that they understand alternative medicine, but also they can provide value of very like simple things that our listeners can take back to their practices and implement like right away. Because as doctors, our time can be a little bit limited. So I was like, okay, always have to have an actionable step that they can take right into their practice because they're taking the time, to listen to the episode. So yeah, the response has been kind of overwhelming. I didn't know. Um, that it would be like that. My mission that it would be, and I'm really glad that it is. But I know it's so needed that I'm just gonna kind of continue that conversation because I want our practices to succeed so we can continue um, treating and healing all these people. But it does start with um, having a solid business, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where I put the podcast is to really help the business side of medicine.
Wonderful. I love that because, some people shy away from business or money because they have limiting unconscious decisions or limiting decisions like money's the root of all evil, or
Hmm.
I'm a healer. I'm here to heal people. If I have a sales pitch or a business plan, then that means I'm not being a healer. Like there's these weird kind of
Hmm.
conflicts that we make up in our mind about being truly being here to be a doctor and a healer. You also have to put on, you've got your doctor hat, you got to put on your healer hat. You need to put on your business hat, because in this world, the more money you make, it can equal the more people you've helped. If you say
Hmm.
that is your measurement. So, if a successful booming practice, and you're charging at a rate that is healthy, you're not gouging people, and you know the work you do gets results. Like you took someone's migraine away in one session, with acupuncture. That amount of relief, she couldn't have put a number on that. That was so valuable to her. So you provide a value, and what you charge is a fair exchange for your service. And then all you have to do is figure out how to implement a marketing plan and a business plan that makes it sustainable.
Hmm.
And that is the hardest thing to do, because now we have to sort of trade hats and go, okay, here's my marketing hat, and now I've got to think like a marketer, now I've got to think like a business owner. And
Hmm.
it can be really hard when we're used to being in healer mode, right? Wanting to just help people, and a lot of people have a hard time with charging what they're worth, and so they'll undercharge, or I mean, there's just so many problems. And I wish that if I could change one thing about Bastyr and all the other naturopathic schools out there, is that they would have a robust and solid results-based business program,
Hmm.
because that's what I see is so needed, to take holistic practitioners and give them more us business strength, so that we can kind of go up against the MDs, which have the pharmaceutical companies helping them.
Hmm.
And so I love the work that you do with your podcast. That's fantastic. What is your most successful episode, or what would you say is the most downloaded, or the most helpful topic that you've covered so far?
Wow. They're all so good. I don't know. Probably initially when I had, she's a very successful health coach turned business coach for health coaches, Rachel Feldman, on. Um, so far, she has the most downloaded episode, and I don't know if you're familiar with her or what she does, but she is just a powerhouse in really helping health coaches really grow their businesses. And I had her on because she knows so much about business, especially the online business
Mm.
part, which is a very different realm than having a local practice where you see people in person one on one. Going online has a lot of challenges as well. And so having her on, I learned so much, and the response that I got from her being on there really opens people's eyes on how to start that online business part, how to reach out to people, and knowing how to communicate when you just do things by phone or by Skype is way different than just meeting people in person. So by far, that was the most popular episode, and yeah, I just love learning from everyone on the show. So it was hard just to pick one, but that one really stood out in my mind.
Very cool. Yeah, that sounds like a great episode. Awesome. Well, I know my show, like you, as one of my listeners, attracts a lot of holistic practitioners. And so I definitely invite them to all explore your podcast. The link to your podcast and everything you do is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast for all the listeners to acquire. Now, your website, is there anything on your website we should make sure that we explore?
Yeah, if you go to startingpointacupuncture.com, I have a lot on there. I write all the time, and so I have a blog on there that has hundreds of blog post topics, mostly on digestive health, migraines, and acupuncture, but a lot of information there. But if you head over to the services tab and you look at online courses, there you'll find kind of what we talked about through this episode is this food allergy formula course. And it's perfect for people, even if they don't have, quote unquote, food allergies. It provides this framework of learning about like going gluten free, if you have egg allergy, what that is, and going dairy free. I kind of focus on those three. And then, like I said, I was able to film the majority of this online course, which is videos, in a natural market, which is pretty neat. And so you're going right in there, and one of the modules is this label reading, looking at different foods and learning how to read the labels and shop and navigate through the store. But also in the last module is all about implementing a 7-day meal plan that is gluten-free, dairy-free, and egg-free. And I talk about how to make all those meals from when we're actually shopping at the store, and that one module bring it back into a kitchen and how to easily create that for your week. And so if you have a chance to head over and check out the food allergy formula, it's all on startingpointacupuncture.com.
I have to tell you, I've got website envy right now. You have a really beautiful website, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's funny. Once in a while, I'll have a guest that just has a way better website than me, and I'm sitting there going, this website looks so good.
Oh, thank you.
So you're
Thanks.
giving me website envy, and it's very beautiful. I like the blog. It's really detailed, lots of great information, well thought out, and it's so cool to read so many articles written by a doctor who wants to genuinely help you gain your health back. I can see that you're really living by the principle that you get what you give, and you're really giving a lot to, and obviously you'll receive because of how much you're giving. Very cool. And then you also have this no foods, yes foods list that people can get. Share some of the no foods and the yes foods from your free no foods, yes foods list.
Yeah, it's just a free ebook that you can get by signing up for our newsletter, and I've since changed the name to Optimal an optimal foods guide for digestive health, but it is like kind of yes and no foods. So with this guide, the yes foods, I break down protein versus fats, fruits and vegetables, drinks that you should have, and everything that you should be eating. And then the last page are the no foods. And what's on there is a lot of the processed foods, sodas, but I break it down more specifically so you can look at it like, wow, I didn't know that, I shouldn't be eating that. It's like unhealthy. And so kind of like break it down, but how I have it structured, it kind of clarifies, wow, there's so many things that I can eat. Because I have like 10 pages of yes foods, 1 page of no foods. So I have a lot of people telling me that it really kind of clarified kind of that mystery of what can I eat? And my answer is you can eat a lot. There's so many things that you can eat.
Oh, I love that. I love that you got this giant list of all things you can have. And then here's a little nose, because so many people go, I have had that so many times. You're gluten-free. What can you eat? You can't eat anything. And, oh, dairy or eggs, you have to cut those out. And all of a sudden they think that that's it. You can't eat anything, right? And so you have to let them know that, no, just because I'm dairy-free and gluten-free and egg-free, there are so many foods available to me. And it's kind of crazy when you do dial in what you might be allergic to. I did the IgG test a few months ago, and bananas were on my test. I'm like, I love bananas. But since I cut out, I've only had about 5 foods on my IgG test. I cut them out. I feel amazing. I cannot believe it. I already felt good before that. I feel amazing. So it's something that at first might seem hard, like to imagine life without it. But now I can't I don't even think about bananas. It's not a big deal. I just don't buy them. And so if I don't buy them, they're not my house and I don't have to deal with them. And then I eat an apple or, something else and feel so much better as a result. So I highly recommend that process of eliminating what you might be reacting to. Now, you keep mentioning label reading. My husband has been begging me to get a guest on the show to teach label reading. I think it's so funny that you keep mentioning it because I'm like, okay, dear. If I find someone that's good enough to teach a whole thing about label reading, it's kind of hard to teach just on audio without showing any visual. But could
Hmm.
you give us a little teaser? Give us some examples of what to look for on a label, and maybe like kind of the yeses and nos when it comes to label reading.
Yes, so I love reading labels, and not only with your food, but this can also apply to supplements. So say you're reaching for something on the shelf, just turn it over, and there's usually a food label, and there's a lot of information on there. But when I really focus in on like the number one thing to look at is usually on a food label. Towards the bottom, there'll be something called other ingredients. And you want the after the colon, like other ingredients, colon, as few words as possible after that. And so that's kind of the number one thing that I say. If you turn something over, if it's a supplement or if it's a food, and there is a whole paragraph, just put that back on the shelf. You do not want that. That's kind of like my number one tip is if there's a lot of words, you don't want that product. But then you can kind of take it a step further and really look at what those words are in that other ingredients section. You want to be able to pronounce them. Like easy identifiable words. Majority of the time, it'll probably be what the product actually is. So just a very basic example, like peanut butter. You want to make sure that it has, peanut butter in the name and the other ingredients. It may have salt, it may have oil, but if there's like anything else there, it probably shouldn't be there. And you can just put that product back on the shelf. And so as basic as possible, and this can also go for supplements as well. So with supplements specifically, a lot of companies tend to put a lot of fillers and things that aren't so good for you in the supplements. And you'll see that listed under the other ingredients little section. And so that's kind of also beware if there's any food dyes or was it propylene glycol is another one, or titanium dioxide. Kind of steer clear of those and put that product back on the shelf. Just kind of be more aware of what's in there. That would be like my number one tip is to always look in the other ingredients section, and that'll really help guide you if that's something you should be eating or not.
Very cool. Yeah, they can hide a lot of crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
I am, shopping at the grocery store we shop at. There's certain principles. I love if you can find a co-op that they have principles like there's no nitrates or nitrites, sodium nitrate, potassium nitrate, none of that. There's no like red dye number whatever. There's no MSG. Those things, those neurotoxins and harmful substances that really don't need to be, or certain preservatives that don't need to be in the food. Some co-ops will just not even allow it in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that about the grocery store we go to because it saves me a little bit when it comes to reading labels. I could not believe about a year ago I was at a friend's house and she's really healthy, eats really healthy, but she let her husband buy her kids whatever they want, and I picked up the bag of chips that they were eating, and the third ingredient was MSG, and I'm like, what? Like it was crazy. Like, why would you give a 7-year-old monosodium glutamate? Like, why can't you just get regular chips? Like, why does it have to be covered in artificial crap? And it just amazes me that people don't turn over the package and read the label. My husband, it drives him crazy. He calls me the label reader. And I mean, I've become a food detective. I've honed my food detective skills. But the things they put in stuff, when you actually start reading labels, you'll be like, why? Why'd they do that? Why do they have to do that? They don't need to do that. And then you will find the healthier alternative. and oftentimes less expensive, because if it costs money for them to put a bunch of monosodium glutamate in it. Let's just find something that doesn't even need that, or make our own. Go Whole Foods and figure out how to make it yourself. I love making my own salad dressing. When you read what's on in most salad dressings, it drives me crazy. So I just make my own. It's 3 ingredients, and it tastes delicious, and I know I'm not getting a bunch of crap. So
Mhm.
it's pretty crazy. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this information. And I'd love for you to wrap up today's interview. Is there anything any message you'd like to leave the listener with, or any challenge you'd like to give the listener right now?
Yeah, first I want to say, thank you again for having me on the show. This is really great, and my mission is just to help people make whatever change it is as easy as possible. And so if you're listening to this episode and you're like, okay, I think now is the time to really put my health first and start making these changes, just know that you can do it. And you just need that starting point to really make that change. And it's all about making it as simple as possible to start out with. Wherever you are, just take that one step, and that's all you need to do is focus on that one step. And so, yeah, thank you so much for
It's been such a
having me.
pleasure, and I heard you say starting point in there, and I know
Yep.
that is so your mission and your branding are very much in alignment.
Hmm.
I think it was funny when I first read the name of your clinic, Starting Point Acupuncture. I thought, okay, the point is like the point of the needle.
Hmm.
And then I started to see that there's layers to the name of your clinic, the name of your website, because that's where they're starting. Wherever they're starting is perfect, and now they're launching from that starting point. And you do so much more than acupuncture and wellness. Thank you so much for what you do and for being a naturopath, because I love you guys. I'd love to have you back on the show, especially if you want to come back and teach us more about label reading.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. Some people might think that's highly boring, but I mean, I could listen to you for hours talk about label reading. Isn't that weird? Am I just a weird health nut or what?
No, I love to talk about label reading. So, yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. Well, definitely we'll have you back on and you can teach us all about it. All right. Thank you so much, and have yourself a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Or join our membership, learntruehealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to learntruehealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to learntruehealth.com, and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it, and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course. Right there, it's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements. learntruehealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. You can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to learntruehealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.